Firo has spent most of its development time in developing privacy protocols for blockchain and specifically for Firo's blockchain. And there's a reason why. I think privacy is one of those very undervalued things that in the space. And, it's often seen as kind of like as an afterthought or something as a nice to have. But I would argue, if we take a look back at what was cryptocurrency's original ethos, right? To be this alternative financial system. I think privacy is one of the most important elements that you have to have, because why would you use a system where anyone, not just like a certain institution or anyone can look up the blockchain and take a look at basically what is equivalent to your bank history or your bank account history. And I think no one would transact on such a blockchain for real transactions if they can actually help it, right? I mean, a lot of people associate stuff like privacy as, oh, I'm trying to launder something, I'm trying to do something illicit. But I think there is an expectation of privacy for regular financial transactions. Like, if I pay for a cup of coffee, the merchant should not know, what's my net worth, how much I get paid, or who else do I go to. And I think that's really, really basic, and no one really wants to do that, right? And unfortunately, as we have seen, okay, like, I love Ethereum, but if you take a look at Ethereum's privacy, it's really bad. If you take an address, right, that you do all your activities on, you can see exactly what's happening on every single transaction that particular address has made, which exchanges has been, you got this money from, where it has interacted with, what swaps is done. And some might argue to say, oh, well, isn't this what blockchain is about? It's about transparency. Well, no, blockchain is transparent because you want so everyone can verify the state of the blockchain. That means who holds what, who is transacting with who. It's the transparency is a way to keep a decentralized ledger. It's not an inherent property that you actually want. And this is where what our privacy protocols do, which is we hide all the important things. Sender, we hide the receiver, we hide the amount, we can even hide the asset type that is being transacted. But we maintain verifiability. And what that means is that even though you're not getting all this information, this sender receiver amount, you can verify mathematically that these transactions, these changes in state on the blockchain are valid. And we do that with the magic of what we call zero knowledge proofs. And what zero knowledge proofs allow you to do is to prove that you did something without showing exactly what you did, or in a very simple way. And Firo has developed independently our own privacy protocols being built using these zero knowledge proofs. And we have done so, like for example, yes, we've heard of Zcash, ZK snarks, we have heard of Monero ring signatures. Why is Firo trying to build something different? Well, first of all, we set out to build something with really, really high anonymity sets, meaning that the crowd that you're hiding in is not just like, 16 or 5 or 6, you're hiding in a crowd of like 65,000 and maybe eventually millions or billions of people. And that's what we really want to achieve. That means when you look at the blockchain, I can't tell, who did this come from. The other thing that is also really important is that the ZK constructions, the zero knowledge proof constructions that we use, do not really require any very sort of experimental mathematics. We also have very minimal trust requirements. And what does that mean? Remember, in blockchain, we're all about, don't trust, verify, right? It's all about the whole purpose of blockchain is that we do not trust each other. If we trusted each other, then we don't really need a blockchain. We could just have a centralized authority to say this is what the state is, right? And with certain type of ZK constructions, actually with the vast majority that are being used today, such as what we call Graph 16 ZK snarks constructions, they have something what we call a trusted setup. And what the trusted setup is that when you create the system, there has to be this ceremony where people come together and build this set of parameters, and then they have to destroy those parameters. If those parameters are not destroyed correctly, or there's a way to reconstruct those parameters, there's essentially a backdoor into the system. So of course there are a lot of clever ways to ensure that people do not collude or stuff, but it's still an unwanted kind of property. Why deal with a trusted setup? Why deal with all these issues? And you know, some trusted ceremonies have had their issues. There have been issues where a vulnerability in the ceremony was not detected for 2 years. So we built all our protocols without requiring this type of trusted setups, and built it in such a way where the individual components are very easy to verify and analyze. So this is why we set out what we to do what we want to do. And there's a lot of research, and I feel that our research, especially with Lelantus Spark, has kind of opened a whole new family of privacy protocols that are based out of one of many proofs, and I would say discrete log type of assumptions kind of cryptography, where the assumptions are better tested, right? We're not using any sort of fancy pairing based type of stuff. So I think that's a really exciting thing, and we had a choice, right, to kind of like copy what other people were doing, or to build something really independent that we can understand, and even if we're not around, other people can continue our work off. And we are already seeing it today. For example, other privacy coins like Monero, has taken like key ideas from our protocol, Spark, for their next gen protocol called Seraphis. Beam has also created something called Lelantus Mimblewimble that was based off Lelantus, and we are very happy to see this diversity and variety in privacy protocols, because I think we need different solutions, right? It's kind of like people say, oh, why do we need all these solutions, right? Why can't we just pick one and argue? Well, why don't we all drive the same car? Yes, it gets from A to B, but there are differences between the cars. There are differences between the privacy protocols. And what happens if there's an issue with one of these privacy protocols, or there's some problem that needs to be solved? Like, for example, we experience it. Like, Firo used to be called Zcoin after the protocol that we were using called Zerocoin. And at that point, it was probably like the third most used privacy protocol in the space, and there was a vulnerability, right? And because we had other privacy, we had research to move towards a different new protocol, we could adapt and develop our work. So I think it's really important, the work that we do. And one thing that we are also trying to do is that we're trying to expand privacy, because I don't really believe in a cryptocurrency that can do it all, right? There will always be trade-offs, right? Like, if I want to drive a Lambo that goes really fast, obviously it's a bit different than a Honda Civic, right? Which is reliable, affordable, gets you from place to place, but maybe not super fast. But a Lamborghini, has its trade-offs. It's not very fuel efficient. It's not really your daily go-to. And similarly, I would say cryptocurrencies are like that, right? You cannot optimize for everything. You have to decide which set of trade-offs that you want to do. And Firo, our idea is to not compromise on privacy, right? So everything that we do is that if you want privacy, you're going to get it at Firo. And what we are doing is not just as a cryptocurrency, is to expand that use case beyond just being a currency, but being a privacy infrastructure for the entire crypto ecosystem. And that comes in with what we call our new work called Spark Assets. And what that actually allows is that people can create their own tokens or bridge existing tokens from other chains and enjoy all the privacy features that Firo has developed from, like, Lelantus Spark, Dandelion, and all of that. And do it at very cheap costs, right? Because obviously, yes, you can do some sort of privacy on Ethereum, and with certain, it's expensive, your anonymity set, and all of that, it has its own problems. But if Spark Assets, it's designed for privacy, and therefore you're going to get very high levels of privacy, with very little work and with very little fees. And I think one of the most exciting things for me is that with Spark Assets, the asset type is also hidden. And what that means is that you can create, your dog coin or your frog coin or a voting token or a US dollar coin. And all of them are indistinguishable from each other. Meaning that, even if I'm transacting Firo, if I'm transacting US dollar, they all contribute to this crowd of anonymity, right? So even if your coin isn't very used, you are enjoying the same privacy, anonymity set that all the other assets and Firo itself shares. And I think that's a very powerful thing. That means as our ecosystem grows, it contributes to everyone's privacy, not just Firo's, not just your coin. And I'm really excited for that.